Tommy Robinson. But your real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon. Now, your real name is Steve. Now, why won't you just put on a riding hat and admit that you're called Stephen Yaxley? I see you on an interview once, mate. I see you go. You ate it, didn't you? You ate it that they do that Tommy Robinson thing, don't you? You ate it. Mate, are we recording? Yeah, we're recording. All right, where was you last time? I was ready to do an interview, then I look on X, Tommy Robinson, lamps a geezer in the underground. No, he started it. What's it like? I'll tell you, I know once you start, you're going to go. So I'm going to get it out of my system.
Oh, get it out of my system.
I see you on Jordan Peterson. He sent me it. It was that was so mad, that one. Okay, so Tammy's brought Tommy on. Okay, so Tammy, tell me, why do you want Tommy, Tammy? Let's talk to Tommy, Tammy. Well, I just think he's very important. What's happening? There's you looking all proper wired, all wired up in Stone Island, all Stone Island up. No, because what it is, right? I was in Centre Parks. That's not my kid. I've smashed him. I'm like, this geezer's life, man. Now, I've been watching you for a long time. I've been watching you longer than, I bet you, like, even when there was stuff going on, I reckon it must be over 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago. Even the stuff where, I think he was maybe with Mo Ansar and they were doing that stuff, trying to get working class British people and Muslims to get it on. But ages ago, Tommy, I thought I thought if the Labour Party can't reach the people that this geezer's reaching, there ain't no point having a Labour Party. That's what I thought ages ago, when I still would have been like, I'm not sure about this geezer and all of that, when I would have had a lot of liberal stuff. But I've got so much to ask you. I'm not going to talk all the time, but just for the benefit of our audience, for the benefit of the tape, Mr. Yaxley Lennon, I'm not going to call you Tommy Robinson. I won't call you that. For the benefit of the tape, I don't know if you're old enough to get, if your early police interviews took that style, mate. That's how when I used to get interviewed as a lad, when I used to get arrested, they had to still say for the benefit of the tape. Now, cameras, we were recording you before you got here. We've been recording you in your car for Panorama. You just got to assume you're being taped the whole time. But what I wanted to say is, I'm from a place called Grays in Essex. You're from Luton. I know Luton. I know people from Luton, and I've listened to what you've said about growing up in Luton. So I know where you're from. I know it. And I sort of, to some degree, know what you've been through. But we're from different worlds in another way, because I've been in Hollywood and all of that kind of stuff. I've been sort of liberal and I've been on the left. What I mostly want to, I'm sort of, as you can probably tell, excited to talk to you. But I know, same as you know, there's a lot of people hate me. I know there's a lot of people hate you. So, I'm trying to, I want to have the conversation that's going to be most valuable. So I'm going to go in on the thing I've thought about most. Do you think, that British working class people can throw off the systems of control that seem to be pretty threatened now with all the, excuse me spitting, all the Epping protests and all the stuff around the Bell Hotel and all that, mate, if there isn't some cohesion and unity between, say, British working class and different British groups, which I think, which would include, I reckon, Muslim groups to a point. What if it's so? If the position that you want to orient the British working class towards is explicitly and deliberately anti-Muslim, do you think that it can succeed? Or do you not care about that? You only care about your authentic point of view, and your authentic point of view is that Islam has been a kind of a curse on British cultural life.
Starting off, wow, you brought some energy there.
And I'm 22 years clean, baby. It's not going up the Utah.
That's usually me. I'm usually... I would say we're not anti-Muslim, for starters. I don't have an anti-Muslim view. Yeah, Muslims are individuals and people. I do have an opinion on Islam. What do I think? I think on the 13th of September, you're going to see us unify Britain. When I say unify Britain, I had a meeting yesterday with Sikh organisations. I've had 2 meetings this week with Sikh organisations. Organisations that we've covertly and secretly worked with for the last 15 years. We've worked and partnered up in dealing with grooming gangs, in dealing with racist attacks that they've faced. I'll give you an example. When I was leading the English Defence League in Essex, the Sikhs have a summer school. At that summer school, they were coming under attack by gangs of young kids on the estate. 30, 40 youths on a Friday night were smashing the windows, attacking them, calling them terrorists, and chanting EDL. And back then, this is during the English Defence League days, the Sikhs had rang me. I'd gone down onto the estate on a Friday night with some of the lads, met the kids, and they're like, Tommy, I said, what's going on with the summer school? And they said, oh, they're fucking terrorists. I said, lads, they're not terrorists, man. Do you know the history of them? And it's just education. And after sitting with the kids, we then brought all the kids up to the Sikh summer school as the Sikhs come out and totally broke down that barrier. Yeah, because there's a lot of barriers. Now, what you're going to see us do is unify Britain. And for the purpose, and the reason I had the meeting with the Sikhs yesterday, they're concerned. Their community are concerned. Because this anti-migrant sentiment, which is now exploding against mass immigration, their concern is that it's not just against bad migrants. It's not just against those that have come and taken liberties and taken the piss in Britain. Yeah, they're worried that, and we're actually seeing this. I know there's been a lot of attacks against Indians in from what I'm seeing. Yeah, I haven't gone down the rabbit hole on it across Europe. Now, so what we will do. So I had a meeting with the Sikhs and said, I believe it's imperative that you show where you stand on this issue, and that Sikhs. And they have always done this anyway. Every one of our events are Sikhs, yeah? But I believe you need Sikh representation speaking at our event. I believe you need black representation speaking at our event, which we will have, and we do have. Now, I have spoke to a Muslim lady about coming to our event, whether they do or not. But my issue with Britain and what we want to do, and when you're talking about how people uniting against the control element of the government, the betrayal of the government. I think what we're seeing, I'm excited with what I'm seeing because I've waited 15 years for this, yeah? In the sense that I've been banging my head against the wall sometimes, trying to warn the public about problems that I know are coming, and people didn't want to listen to them or didn't want to accept them because it might burst the bubble of their life. And I could see all this. And it wasn't because I had a crystal ball. It was because I was born in Luton Town. So I'd looked at Luton Town, I'd seen mass immigration. I know, growing up in one of the most diverse towns in Britain, I know what works and what doesn't work. Per se, Christian immigration from any nation works. Yeah, it does. Okay, there's a massive difference. The problems in London are not coming out of the Christian black community either. Yeah, the churches that are full, when they still have the family unit, there's not a problem. Okay, the problem does come growing up in Luton from Islam, which is what I talk about. And that, again, Russell, just to make it clear, because I know some great Muslims who I've grown up with. I'm not saying every single Muslim is a problem. Yeah, that's why I say Muslims aren't the problem. Islamic teachings are. Although you used to be very liberal, I actually still say it's my liberal views that make me oppose Islam and its teachings. It's their views on women. It's the oppression of women, the violence, the execution of homosexuals. These fascist violent ideas are core teachings of Islam. It's not like they are core parts of Islam. But what's currently happening, Russell, across this country is a tidal wave of nationalism and patriotism. Remember, people have been made to feel ashamed of who they are. We've lost our identity. We've lost our culture. And a void has been filled. And that void has been filled because part of the identity and culture we've lost is Christianity. There's been an attack on Christianity, an organised, well-planned attack. And not just on the family, Christianity. And when you have a country that has no belief, which is what we pretty much become, when you have a country that has no belief, you leave a void. Now, that void can be filled by Islam, Marxism, socialism, communism, and all these other ideas become celebrated and pushed. And that's what we've seen. And something, as I talk about a British Revolution brewing, there's also a Christian revival brewing. And I saw on our first event, and the figures of young men attending church show this. The figures, and I saw something which I couldn't explain at the time. Yeah, we held our first event, Russell. I don't know if you know what the plan was behind the United Kingdom. I don't know if you followed it. No, so I sat and watched as our culture's decaying, as free speech is under attack. All of these issues, I'm watching them. Yeah, and we all know it. And we called a meeting, and it was myself, Katie Hopkins, Cole Benjamin, Lawrence Fox, Calvin Robinson, that Paul Thorpe, lots of alternative journalists, commentators, influencers. We had young TikTokers, boxers, comedians. We held a private meeting for a day. And the idea of the meeting was to bring these people together to decide we don't have to agree on everything, yeah? But what we have to agree on is that Britain's in trouble. We need to make it cool to be British, because it's not at the minute. It's cool to be Islamic, which is why everyone's converting. So we need to make it cool to be British. We need to stand up for certain values and agree on certain values. What can we agree on? Because lots of us won't agree on things. And you don't have to agree with me on Islam. This isn't about Islam. It's about British culture, British identity, freedom of speech, prevent sexualisation of children, the indoctrination through the education system. So we had a meeting. We had a few days
together.
Do
that list again, mate. Do the list. Tommy, do the list again, mate. Do that little list.
Okay. So, Katie Hopkins.
Oh, not the people, the principles. The principles.
Oh, the principles. So freedom of speech, against sexualisation of children, against the indoctrination of the education system with the transgenderism, everything like that. British culture, British identity. So we put together these points, and we were looking at a focus called the Pledge. It was a focus called the Pledge, where we would approach everyone, even like yourself, Russell, yeah, and say to influencers, can we all just agree on these principles? Forget the rest of the bullshit. And anything that opposes these principles, politicians, organisations, groups, we will unite against them. So the idea was, we worked on a brand and a name, Unite in the Kingdom. That's what we want to do. We want to unite the kingdom, and we looked at politics, and I believe that if we change, well, we all said, it wasn't just me. So when you see Unite the Kingdom and you see this event that's coming on Saturday, this was put together by 20 people who sat and spent days together, and then weeks after that, negotiating, coming backwards and forwards on what this movement does and what it stands for. And the idea was that if we change the culture, we change the politics. Yeah. So we come together. We had the idea of an event. Our first event was on the 1st of June, and 30,000 people turned up. We had a festival, we had free speech, we had music, we had celebration, and we had identity. And what it done for the people that turned up, it gave them something that we've lost in this country. It gave them a sense of identity, belief, but brotherhood and sisterhood. It gave them a community. And people, I saw it with the English Defence League, Russell. The same sort of people who join the English Defence League are the same sort of people that convert to Islam. Yeah. It's the same at the times. It was people searching for something they've lost. So that's what happened. We held the first one. The second one had 100,000 people. We worked with the Metropolitan Police Force. We've totally 360'd the relationship with the police. I believe that we were purposely put against the police, and the police would purposely get put against us. The reputation of the Metropolitan Police Force was dragged through the gutter for years due to politicised policing, where they were sent out to smash us, and they purposely allowed, which I've now learned. Remember, I've held 80 national demonstrations. I know how to play it. I know what you have to do to not. So, for example, when you agree a route with a demonstration, if you go off that route, it gives the police the ability to fortify a road and block a road. Your supporters end up clashing with the police. It takes one truncheon to cause mayhem. Yeah. So that's very easy, and that's been done to us a lot. So the way we work with the police now from the first meetings, and that's why we're seeing the success we're going to see. That's why when we work with the police, we take the hotspots, which I've just done. I've done a route last week with 10 police officers, the public order officers, the senior planners, the gold commanders, and we went with our security, with our stewards. We walked the route and see where can there be a possibility of friction. We know there can be one on this junction because where we turn, they're going to have police wagons. We'll put 25 stewards there. We know there will be one outside Downing Street in case our supporters try to go to the gates and there's police officers there. We'll put 30 stewards and security there. We don't want the police to clash with our supporters. We don't want to see police with riot shields because it provokes reaction. So we've worked tirelessly to build a community and to build a safe space because families can come and have their say and send a message to the British establishment. And we had 100,000. Then I was put in prison, as you know. Thank you, by the way, Russell, for covering the film that I was in prison for. I'm not allowed to promote that film because I'll go back to prison, but I saw that you covered it. I'm grateful because so many didn't, and I think it was an important story, and it showed it showed the corruption of the judiciary, and it showed the corruption of the media. Yeah. So, but that's what we've created. And I'm not just saying this, Russell. Keep your eyes, and anyone watching this, keep your eyes on London on the September 13th. The numbers and the scenes coming out of our capital city are going to shock the world. The entire Western nation, every Western nation have faced the same. It's not a mistake. Our towns and cities are being flooded. I don't blame the migrants. If I could leave England, if we were poverty stricken here, and I could leave and go to another country, get a 4-star hotel, sit there, get paid, get fed, get clothing, get everything, and then wait to bring my family over, I probably would. Yeah. So I don't blame them. But with our establishment are allowing it. It's people trafficking. It's to benefit the corporations. It's to lower wages. It's to cause friction. It's to cause disruption. So we're watching it. And the change that's happened in the last 18 months, I don't think there's probably ever in our generation of going to be a shift in public opinion, emotion, passion, and feeling the way there has now. Something huge is happening.
There's no question about that. So, thank you for explain. You explained that really well. You said that really well. Thanks, as always. Now, good. I reckon I want to say this in the beginning so that I've said it because, you know, maybe people will clip it up and that. Like, what I admire about you is your bravery, your authenticity, your willingness to suffer for what you believe in. I agree with them principles. I aspire to those principles. Now, the areas, and because I'm a person that exists in the media, I don't know what judgments I have against you that ain't even fair judgments, because they're judgments that I've had sold to me by media that has a vested interest in you looking a certain way. Because I do know this: show me the man and I'll show you the crime. So if they've got you, a former casual from Luton, they're going to emphasise violence. If they've got me, a womaniser that's gone through Hollywood, they're going to emphasise sex. So I know how it works. But what I pray for in this, and I agree with you that this is a unique moment, is that love is at the forefront, because Christ is about love above all else. And what concerns me, and I was really happy to hear you say that about like migrants, is of course migrants will come over if there's an opportunity for them. Why wouldn't they? And I do sometimes still think, Tommy, that Britain's history of imperialism and colonialism does mean that there's this kind of debt. That debt shouldn't be being paid by the people of Epping, by the way. If anywhere, it should be paid by the people of Knightsbridge or Kensington or the Chilterns or whatever. But there's a lot of, like, you say, for example, there's one MP, and he was the one that owned them estates. When I got involved with a working class community in East London that were campaigning to keep their flats, it ended up being I think he was called something like Richard Bunyan, and he had a massive estate out in Oxfordshire, right, as well as his big houses in London, and his money literally did come from slavery. Like, they still had plantations that weren't run by slaves no more, but out in the West Indies. So I guess what I'm circling is these two ideas. One, I actually do believe in democracy. So whether I agree with it or not, if British people don't want migration, that's the end of the conversation. In a democracy, if they don't want it, that's the end of it. My personal opinion is, if you do believe in migration and refugees and all of that, that you should be prepared to pay that cost locally. But above that, as in it should be, if you believe in it, it should be localised. If you live in Barnes and you're totally down with migration, don't have them in Epping or Luton or Bradford or wherever. You know, and also, mate, what I want to say is that because the social cohesion and love is so important, I sometimes wonder, with the movement that you have been participating in for as long as I've ever first heard your name, if the part of the focus, in addition to your concerns about Islam, which I don't share to the same degree, although I know, you know, what you've read and I know what you say, and I know you've been inside with Muslim populations and have feared for your life and have had personal confrontations and all that, and I'm not trying to diminish any of that, but because when I've lived in East London and gone East London Mosque, one of the things I felt is, if there was ever a way that British Muslims and the British working class and, you know, ordinary people, which now, as you've emphasised at the beginning, includes Sikhs, black people, whatever, if there could be a truce and an ease there, an acceptance of whatever the population is that's Muslim now, that's in Britain and that's got to be worked out, that if that alliance could be formed, or at least a kind of truce, then our focus would fall upon corporate commercial global partnerships, and that's where I think real power is, Tommy, in the media, in the government, in global alliances that transcend national power. And whilst migration is much more in people's faces and in people's streets, and particularly if there's something incendiary like sexual abuse, I can see why people's focus would fall on that. I feel like if you were able to, forgive the word, purge Britain of Islam, absolutely, you would still have the problem of a government that's controlled by bureaucracies. You'd still have the problem of a military-industrial complex. You'd still have the problem of mass surveillance. And in fact, I think they benefit from there being confrontation and conflict between working people of different faiths. So, like, I know you've been on the arse end of attacks from Panorama, from the media. I know that your story in particular tells us something about modern politics, because the way I've reported on this is I've said, like, Tommy Robinson, whatever you think of Tommy Robinson, the British establishment don't like him. Whatever you think of him, they're working pretty hard to get rid of him. Furthermore, we live in a time where Tommy Robinson can make a film, Elon Musk reposts it, they can't shut that geezer down. So you want to recognise that the world's a different shape now, and we've got to come to terms with that. And I think it's important. Now, obviously, because I've been accused of the worst things I think you can accuse a man of, except for paedophilia, I'm sympathetic to what can happen to people if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time and mess with the wrong interests. So really what I want to, I suppose, ask you about is this. Do you think that there is a sense that there's a bit too much anger and hate in the nationalist movement in the UK, whether that's English Defence League or this current iteration, even though I recognise that's something you're working on? Are you concerned? Do you think that the part of what the movement should focus on is inclusivity and where real power is located, i.e. with the relationships between government, media and international interests?
I get the point. I totally get the point. Russell, do you remember English Defence League demonstration? I think 2011. You were in Tower Hamlets. You was there against us. You had you was on the opposite. I can remember because I fucking hated you. Yeah. Back then. I fucking hated you. Back then. I remember it. You was with the Muslim community. My point is, when all this was going on, when we're talking about making truce, yeah? When you're talking about making truce, how do we make a truce with the 40,000 British Muslims who are on a terror watch list? How do we do that? How do we? And when we say about all coming here and working together, Muslims have been here, 40, 50 years? In the reality, just speaking honestly, is their community well integrated and assimilated? It's not. It's not. It's not worked in Luton. It's not working in Birmingham. It's not working in Bradford. The Muslim community might work as a Muslim community, but it's not working as an integrated, assimilated British community. It's just not. Yeah, that's the truth. And when we look at the statistics of any of the dangers, so 2/3 of British Muslims, 66% of British Muslims would not report on another Muslim who was joining ISIS. We've got a problem. We've got a problem. So 33% of British Muslims want Sharia law in the UK. It's 1.2 million. How do we integrate or call a truce with 1.2 million people who wish to overthrow democracy and replace it with a supremacist Islamic ideology that would treat us as second-class citizens? How do we do that? So I understand.
Well,
Jeff,
I actually do have an answer to that question, but if you've not finished speaking, carry on, Tommy, because we're doing for a couple of people that can rabbit, we're doing a good job of listening. So I'm not going to interrupt you if you've not finished. But I know that might have been a hypothetical question, but like my answer to that question. Go on, Tommy. Go, mate.
Go on. Give me the answer to that.
No, you put the phone down first. No, you put the phone down first. No, you hang up first. No, you didn't put the phone down either. It's like, I didn't know it was going to become a bromance so quickly. This is what I'd say, is if there are 1.2 million Muslims in the UK and those statistics about ISIS and whatnot, what I would say is if, like Bradford, but the examples used, Bradford, Luton, Birmingham, how do you grant autonomy and control to those people in those communities without it being disruptive? I would say probably something along the lines of, all right, because like part of your film and a lot of your campaigning work is noticing, observing and journaling the political power that belongs to the members of that community, whether it's mayoralty or councils or even members of parliament, right? So I would say, mate, go, all right, like these areas have essentially become Muslim areas. in these areas, you should be granted autonomy and freedom. Let's hold a referendum on what level of migration British people want. And if it's zero, net zero, then that's the end of that. No more migration to the UK, full stop. And I would say that the answer to the problems you're outlining comes with maximally localising power, whether that's the people of Epping or the people of Luton or the people of Bradford, acknowledging that we're not gonna, are we, deport 1.2 million Muslims that have been born, bred, grown up, played football with, lived with, got married into. That's that. But if Britain is, and I would say it is, a Christian a Christian country that it should be governed according to Christian principles, and part of Christianity would at least be tolerance and acceptance of other faiths if they're not against us. With that proviso, not against us. So I would say that that's how it's done, with localising power, accepting Bradford's Bradford, Birmingham's Birmingham, East London is East London, Finsbury Park's Finsbury Park. Now, how are we going to minimise conflict? Minimise, not maximise.
So, say, for example, we pick Bradford there. Yeah, Bradford. So 76% of Pakistani Muslims in Bradford marry their cousins, first cousins. So Pakistanis make up 3% of the UK population. They're responsible for 33% of child defects. Do you have any idea what the cost of that is on our economy? Why do they do that? Because Mohammed married his cousin. Yeah, I'm sorry. In Britain, that is not acceptable. And so when we look, if we say localize things, well, when a town becomes Islamic and we allow them to localize it, and there's still some non-Muslims there, what are they going to do? Even under democracy, yeah, they'll use democracy to finish democracy. So my point is in London, where London is now 30% English, is that acceptable? Is it acceptable for the whole of the UK to become 30% English and a majority Muslim nation? Is that acceptable? Do you think that's acceptable, Russell?
No, I don't. I think that the United Kingdom should be Christian. I think that the whole world should be Christian. I think every individual in the world should be Christian. But as a Christian, I believe in free speech and I believe in the right to choose your faith and find your own way to God. And even continuing my example of localisation there, Tommy, what I say is that with that, if you had true localisation financially and budgetarily also, that it would be in Bradford that that percentage of marrying was contained. They would have their own budget for hospitals, and yeah, you would have some non-Muslim people living in Bradford, and in a sensibly managed, decentralised country, those people could determine whether or not they were going to live there. I think our priorities should be maximum power to the individuals of the UK. That we should no longer be thinking of default progress, that progress just means the acquisition of more technology, more objects. We should think that we want people to be working, we want people to have control in their communities, we should be supporting farmers and agriculture. Where possible, people should be eating food that was grown and reared as near as possible to where it's being eaten. Where possible, people should be voting for the control of their own budgets. I'm just saying that we should, at the beginning, at the outset of this, say, there's got to be the alternative to accepting that there is Britain now has the percentages, and you're very good with all that, the demographics and the percentages. I respect you for that. That's how it is now. The position of your movement, I would propose, and our movement, if it was to develop, can't be we're deporting Muslims, or it's got to be seen as love. It's got to be, because otherwise we're them. And also, who's going to be the main beneficiary of all this stuff you're doing, mate? What's coming down the pipe, all this stuff you're doing, the main beneficiary will be Nigel Farage, who either denounces you or whatever. And I don't know if his position will change. He'll do whatever's expedient. But don't you think that all this is going to mean reform? Because it will get packaged up and plasticised. And me personally, I reckon there's got to be a way to live harmoniously. I'd like it if we could meet across them barricades. Me being generally supportive of Muslims, especially if it's a loving, peaceful Islam that's not about some of the things that you've itinerized. And because one of the most informative experiences I had with getting involved with protests was early on, right? I was just in London by chance one day and the Liverpool dockers were protesting. So I was thinking, no, this is obviously like working. I didn't even think about it, but obviously that's working class. They're dockers. It all kicked off. They're throwing paving slabs around. It went proper mental. Police horses, Trafalgar Square. You know the sort of scene. And then one way or another, I got pushed to the front of it because I was excited. I was just excited by the chaos, to be honest, mate. Like, there's some of us can handle a little bit of chaos. Huh?
Someone throw you in Trafalgar Square.
Oh, yeah, that was another day. That was another day. Yeah, you like that, didn't you? You enjoyed that. I can see you got off on that. I can see you smiling. You're loving it. I bet you did it, that geezer. You hit that geezer on the train. You hit that geezer on the tube. That bloke at Centre Parks was innocent. You took your brother-in-law's passport. You got a moody mortgage. You got a moody mortgage. Right? No, right? I say, like, one of the first protests I was ever at, I noticed that the police, they were all from where I'm from. They're all from, like, Dartford, Romford, Basildon, Maidstone. I'm like, why am I, like, on the other side of this when the old Bill, they're from similar backgrounds to me? Now, what I'm very interested in is I want to live as a Christian. I want to raise my children as Christian. I want to be a good and loving man. I accept now that that's not everybody's path. But I think when we stay in the locust of opposition, that we are more malleable and more easily managed. In the end, if you're going to overthrow a government, you've got to have the military and the police on the same side as you. If you don't, it's not going to be an easy gig. And I reckon deals will get made because this is real. Yeah, you're right. This movement's real. It's real. But I don't want the beneficiaries of these deals to be the same kind of people that would continue to exploit ordinary British people through commercial and corporate means, would have a surveillance state, facial recognition, jabbed up, chip in your hand, all that stuff, that want to gulag everybody because they basically don't need a working class anymore because they know they've got AI and mass robotics coming down the pipe. And so whilst I'm, to your point, you said earlier, you want people that agree on freedom of speech. We're bang on it. Sexualisation of children, ridiculous, should be ended. And the stuff you've done on rape gangs, that's seismically good. Seismically good. You've impacted the way, the political direction of a country. Amazing. The education stuff, you're right. But I believe in this. If there is some crazy, let's not even call them crazy. If there's some jurisdiction or region where they're like, we're double liberal, we want to educate our kids to be gay and gender fluid or whatever it is, I go, all right, cool, you run your little world there, do it. And we're Muslim over here. The majority, particularly if there is some kind of border control and resurgence of patriotism and Christian values, the majority in the UK will ultimately become Christian. More people are becoming Christian. God will take care of it. So I feel like at this grassroots, ground floor level, that the priority has got to be ensure that we don't run on hate, that we don't run on violence, even though I do respect when people are willing to confront, take violence and suffer violence because they believe in, because your beliefs are strong enough. And I know that's your position.
Yeah, no, Russell, look, I think the utopia idea of all of it is great. It's just not realistic. Like, what's happening to Christians now in Nigeria? They're being massacred.
Massacred, I'm guessing. Yeah.
What's happening to them in Afghanistan? What are their rights like in Pakistan? What's it like for Christians in Saudi Arabia? What's it like for them all over when they become a minority? I know what it's like. Now, across the whole Islamic world, there's 45 countries that Islam has come as a minority and ended up being a majority. Now, when it becomes a majority, are there any minority rights? There's none. So why do we think it's not a different Islam that's in Britain than the rest of the world? It's the same Islam. Why do we think? And my point is, Russell, I'm not willing to play a game, and I'm not willing to roll a dice or gamble on the future of Great Britain. As we say, England has 1,000 years of Christian history, and in 70 years, we've destroyed that. And I think this country looks unrecognisable to so many now in towns and cities. And that right now, the figures are that 5 to 6% of the country is Islamic. What will it look like when it's 25%? Because the demographical change is coming. I don't want, as I said, and with the massive, and I think many Muslims are annoyed with mass immigration, yeah? The whole freshie thing, there are people that are born here, but I'm just not willing to play a game or take a risk. I just don't think we should. I think we should protect British people first. before anyone
What
else.
if all them them Afghan Christians that being massacred or Afghan or you said at the beginning Zimbabwe? Did you say? What if they wanted Nigeria? Excuse me, mate. Not saying that all them African countries are the same, by the way, because I know you'd be into that. You're racist. Now, what if, I'm joking. What if there was a lot of Christian migration to the UK and, we're getting persecuted by, all that? What would you say about that?
I'd rather help Christian migration, because it would assimilate. But how do we tell? Because all the Muslim migration that comes in now, even terrorists are pretending to be gay or pretending to be Christian, so they can't be sent back. That's how they're claiming asylum. Again, there's no perfect situation to this. But what I wouldn't do is play a game or gamble with the future of Britain's daughters. And currently, Afghan migrants are 22 times more likely to be convicted of rape than British people. Why are we letting any Afghans in when we know that statistic? Why is there any more Afghans being allowed into Great Britain? Again, they don't have a right to come here. And when we look at the problems, as I said, white English are now 33% of our capital city. Where do we have to go? Because Afghanis can go back to their homeland. It's Afghanistan. Their homeland is not Britain. It's Afghanistan. Pakistanis can go back to Pakistan. Somalians can go back to Somalia. And when we talk about refugees, none of them are legitimate refugees. And I'll explain, Russell. When I was 11 or 12 years old, we had the Bishop family in my road in Luton. And I remember it was in the newspapers. And when the Bosnian War was on, when Bosnians were being massacred, and a Bosnian family, and it was a boy who come to my school, his daughter and their mum. So a mother and two children who come, and they were placed in the home with the Bishop family in our road, Now, you would be proud of our country. Because I knew that boy. They were Muslim. His father was murdered, and butchered in the war, in the conflict. They come here on an aeroplane brought into Luton Airport for a refugee program. So legitimate refugees brought into the UK. A mother, two children. They went to my school. They both grown up into brilliant British citizens. But that's refugees. This mess that we're seeing now. The hotel's full of young, angry, arrogant, hostile, violent men. 25 sexual assaults against minors from men in hotels. 9 British women raped by men in hotels. A terrorist attack by a man in a hotel. That is a whole different ballgame. We're talking about something very different. Do you think if those hotels are full of women and children, there'd be one protest outside them? There wouldn't be one protest outside them. This is people trafficking. It's human trafficking. And they're being brought in to our country, and there's no checks done on them. But Russell, one case, when you pick up, and I could pick up hundreds of cases like this. One case, Bournemouth. So a young migrant comes, he comes to UK. He says he's 15. He's put into a school in Bournemouth. You have to look this case up. He's put into school in Bournemouth, right? He causes problems at school. He sexually harasses girls at school. When he gets to 19, he stabs a young Royal Marine in the heart and murders him. In the town centre. At that point, he's arrested from the murder. Guess what? They find out he's 25, which means when he was brought into the school, he was actually 21. Guess what they then find out? He shot 2 people dead in Serbia with an AK-47. So he shot 2 people dead. He comes through our border. He gets put in the classroom next to one of our daughters. He sexually harasses them, and then he murders a young Englishman. Now, if that was a one-off, it's not. Do you know how many cases? Do you know when the riots went on, Russell, in the UK after Stockport? Do you know they went on in Hull? What they don't tell you is a Muslim migrant left the hotel in Hull and he stabbed an old age British pensioner to death. Of course, people are outside the hotel. What they don't tell you is in Yarmouth, they left where people were protesting, migrant left the hotel and raped a woman. What they don't tell you in Tamworth, Mohammed left the hotel and raped a woman. So when people are protesting outside, rather than have the legitimate discussion about why people are angry, what they did is blanketed it, politicised it as far right. So, and that might have worked. They weaponised the judiciary, weaponised the media, weaponised the courts, imprisoned innocent people for words, for all their social media posts. That buried it for a limited time. What you're seeing now is it's rising up again. It's not going to go away. And it's not going to go away because people see, and I understand. And when I meet many left-wing people, and I've got friends who have got left-wing partners, the reason that they have their liberal views and they welcome refugees is because they're lovely, wonderful people. But it doesn't work like that. And what should we do first and foremost? Our job as a country is not to help Afghanistan. It's not to help them. It's to protect British people first. And that's it. And my first and foremost, I care about young English children being sexually harassed on their way to school in Epping. I don't care about the fucking Somalian in the hotel. I honestly don't. So when I look at that, and obviously, and this mood of the nation, which has totally changed, if we could just put up a truce, the Muslims would stop raping at an uncontrollable rate. Do you know in 2003, there were 8,000 rapes. 2003, Russell, there was 8,000 rapes. 2023, there were 88,000 rapes. What's changed? I know what's changed. You can do the demographics from Islamic immigration into Sweden and rapes, and there's a graph that correlates. It's the same for Britain. Yeah, there is and when we look at the statistics in the UK, Muslims make up, as I said, 5 or 6% of the UK population. 84 to 90% of the convictions for gang rape of children is Muslim men. So what if we had this truce? Are they going to stop raping? Are they going to stop being hostile? There's these problems. And I'm not saying all of them, bruv. I'm not saying all of them. But what I'm saying is that this utopia idea, it just doesn't work. It's not there.
I'm actually not pursuing utopianism because I think that's a sort of a terrifying idea, actually. But what I believe in is Christ and Christianity. I recognise your anger, and every single one of those examples and stories is appalling in its own way. And as a father of daughters, I couldn't be more sympathetic to your protective instinct. Your desire to fight and protect is extremely admirable. And as someone that's been accused of rape, I'm like, my God, it's so extraordinary that these stories involve the rape of women and the abuse of children, and that the media and judiciary appear in ways that don't quite make sense, appear to be masking and controlling this information and the understandable outrage around it. What I want to get to and understand is the correct, because the fact is, Tommy, at one point you said they weaponise the media and the judiciary. You're right, they do. Now that they, the government, the media, these sets of establishment powers that are beyond the reach of democracy are, in this instance, using the issue of migration to create further hostility. And I understand why your focus is on the particular Somalians or particular Muslims that are doing those particular crimes. Why wouldn't they be? Totally makes sense. But what interests, and I'm not saying, by the way, you should focus on the things I'm focused on. You should focus on what you're focused on. I should focus on what I'm focused on. But maybe we can benefit one another, because I think there are a lot of things where we agree with one another. What I'm very focused on is what potential solution there can be. Now, because one thing I will tell you is, like, you're right, a lot of them lovely left-wing folks or left-wing partners or whatever, if they're motivated by compassion, that's fantastic. But one of the things that became very, very clear during the COVID pandemic was the people use the idea that they're caring for us or others or a vulnerable minority in order to legitimise further control and authority. It's one of the realisations I had during COVID. I thought, hang on a minute, what do you mean life is sacred, and life is so sacred that if everyone has to get locked in their house and everyone has to take this injection and everyone has to wear this mask and stand 6 feet apart and do as we're told, and they're shutting down all these businesses and all these small businesses are suffering, but great big corporations somehow don't get shut down. If life is so sacred, why are we living the way we are? Why are we tolerating homeless veterans on our street, homeless mentally ill people on our streets, injustice in the prison system, exploitation, deception through media, bad food? Why are we tolerating all that? What became very clear to me in the COVID era, Tommy, is that the idea of care and concern is used to legitimise control and authority, and I'll bet the same thing's happening through this migration issue. Oh, we got to help all these people. And I think that's a ruse, and it's a blag, and it has to be confronted. But say when, near the beginning of your last answer, you talked about Pakistan, and I thought, well, look, we're British, and you can't even say the word Pakistan without acknowledging that Britain was in that territory, messing shit up, carved it up bad, caused a load of strife. Same in the Middle East. I'm not saying that price needs to be paid by some mum in Brum right now, or someone in Luton or Epping or whatever. But I am saying that there is a kind of a debt somewhere. There's a debt somewhere. Britain caused a bunch of aggro, and it weren't normal British people. It was British elites. And them same British elites, they ain't gone away. They're doing their thing right now. And they benefit from me and you not being able to get to a point where we go, well, you're from Luton, I'm from Grays. All I'm really saying is, can we look at the edges of this thing? Because I want to be able to walk through East London or any Muslim community. I want to be able to turn up at mosques and say, look, this is the position of Tommy Robinson and his constituency. You know, no doubt he has a constituency. He ain't a politician, but he's a leader. And his position is this, that if you're Muslim and you're living in Britain, then the rules of Britain have to supersede the rules of Islam. And that seems pretty cool. If you're living in Saudi Arabia, then the rules of Islam supersede the rules of Christianity. Cool. We got a deal? Deal. You know, because I actually think it's possible to change the world, as you do, because you wouldn't live like you do if you didn't believe it. And the only thing I want to, and I've wanted to say it from the first time I see you, is like, if we got to make sure that I understand the anger. You know, believe me, I understand the anger. I understand the hatred. I understand the rage. I feel it. And I'm glad that there's people that feel it with me, and there's people that can direct it. But if we don't ensure that love and compassion are in the mix, I'm not saying we all have to sort of sit around kumbaya and putting flowers in one another's hair. We're in a fight. We're in a spiritual war. There's no question about it. It's going to cost lives. People are going to die. We have to ensure that love's at the forefront. That's the only thing I'm advocating for while I've got you one-on-one, because I want like Owen Jones or people of the left to watch this and go, you know, oh, because I know they're already, you know what they'll write. Oh, Russell Brand platformed Tommy Robinson. Maybe they'll say Tommy Robinson platformed Russell Brand.
You're the toxic one now, Bob.
Yeah. 2003. When you're doing them rape stats, I nearly went, well, 2003, I've done all of them. The 2003 ones was me. What happened around then? I got married.
Well, so I think that, in fact, what I'd like to, can I ask you a couple of questions? Yeah?
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like. Well, in fact, in your face far worse than me. But I know how difficult it is facing people judging you, people smearing you. So with what's happened with you recently, with the allegations, why do you, because I watched it, I think I knew they were coming. Yeah. I think that when I watched you talking, you become one of the most vocal people on Big Pharma. And as I was watching it, I thought, he's fucked. As I was watching it, if I'm honest. Yeah. As I was watching you talk, I thought, you're fucked. Because I know the influence and the power. And you're very open about your womanizing, but nothing ever happened about it. And or there was no questions about it until all of a sudden, at the moment that you are discussing Big Pharma and talking about the influence of Big Pharma and the abuse of Big Pharma and the slavery we face to Big Pharma. So can I ask, what's that been like for you?
Well, it's been insane.
How old's your kids?
I've got a 2-year-old son, I've got a 7-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old daughter. So it's been insane, and it's been frightening. But I'll tell you what's been like. Look, there's been good things about it because it's brought me to the Lord. That, along with my boy being born with a tetralogy of fallow, which is a rare heart condition, he's doing really well. He's doing well, my boy, now. But what it also has been weird about it is I now know it's wrong to womanize the way I womanized. But it ain't criminal. It's wrong. It's sinful to not think about the impacts of your actions on other people, or if you're famous and women are willing to have it off with you in a toilet. You shouldn't do that. That's wrong. That's wrong to do that. That's not a crime, but it is a sin. But what's been mental is to watch their ability to tweak it. All they had to do is upgrade it from this geezer is a womanizer and that is selfish and it's sinful and it's not the right way to live. They've tweaked it to coercion, force, all that kind of stuff. So it's been educational, but also the cases themselves are obviously, you know, I'm like, you know how careful people have to be in legal situations, but the cases themselves are not good because this just in, I've never raped anybody, because if you live in an orchard, you don't need to steal apples. And when I was famous, I had high access to sex, high access to it. It was sort of unbelievable, because, by the way, mate, I weren't growing up hardest kid in my school, captain of the football team. I was a little fat boy who was nervous about myself. So when I got famous and suddenly, bam, access, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And I lived in a way that was wrong. And I do renounce it now. But I also will say that the culture kind of celebrates womanising and tells you that's what you're meant to be doing. And most lads I knew, you know, you're meant to be putting it about. That's what you're meant to do. That's what you're meant to do. So, yeah, it's been scary. It's been interesting. It's been educational. And it shows you that when you're in the mix, I didn't realise this, Tommy. The culture is very powerful, and it just uses people. If what you represent is useful to the culture will just use you. But the first time I started getting heat, mate, was when I goes, there's no point voting. If whoever you vote for, you're going to end up with the same political class and the same interests being represented. When I said that, it weren't the right that attacked me. It was the left. It was the Guardian, the BBC. They went for me hard, man. And I was like, bloody hell. They were patronising, and they were more or less saying, who does this geezer from a normal school in Grays Essex think he is, saying this? And because what I said is, people I grew up with, no one votes because we all recognise that it's bollocks. No one's ever voted. No one thinks about it as being relevant because there's no one, right? And like that, when that happened, yeah, that's when I started to realise this is weird. But even before the sex stuff within the Times and the Channel 4, before it, about a month before it, there was a piece in the Atlantic saying he's a conspiracy theorist, right wing. There was a piece in Rolling Stone, conspiracy theorist, right wing. Thing in the Times, conspiracy theorist. You can say when they're all saying the same thing, you know it ain't true. You know it ain't true. Now I bet if me and you got to know each other more, there'd be things that we wouldn't agree on, things we might not like about one another. But and things that even in this conversation we disagree on plainly. But we agree that there is something going on that needs to be confronted. And I'm just thinking about, in a way, the angle of attack. But to answer your question, it's been difficult, but it's been informative. And I have to acknowledge that there was wrongdoing. The way I treated women was not right. We're here to protect and love women. And the only safe place for sex for me is in a marriage. That's it. That's not how I lived. And now I'm paying the price. And that's fine. I'm happy to pay the price. I believe in God. I'm cool, but I've never raped no one, and I've never abused anyone.
How have you dealt with the pressures of that? Just honestly, how have you dealt with the pressures of that?
Firstly, the Lord, man. The Lord is like, nothing happens. How long have you been clean? 22 and a half years. Oh, so, yeah, so I've got a program. If you're clean. When this hit, there was no thought of drink or drugs. You know, you think, suicide. Yeah, but not drink and drugs. Because, drink and drugs is a spiritual, as you know, I think, is a spiritual problem. People are looking for connection. Every drug addict I've ever known, they're looking for something. They're looking for God. They're looking to be filled up. They're looking for connection. Now, I've had that. Blessedly, I've been granted that for a long time. And I got off smack and crack when I was 27 years old. I was shown how to you have to surrender to God. But I did become, basically I was by then, soon after that, I got famous and I had a lot of access to sex, and a lot of my sexual conduct had the appetite of addiction in it. That didn't mean non-consensual, because blessedly I was in a position where it was consensual, but man. Anyway, so with addiction to drugs, if you don't find a spiritual solution, the addiction will just keep permutating, and where I am since coming to Christ, since coming to our Lord, since the thing that, because simultaneous to all that stuff, Tommy, what people don't know and they won't report on because no one wants to report nothing that's sympathetic, is my boy was in Great Ormond Street. My kid was born with a heart defect and had to have a heart operation. Meanwhile, I'm being same exact time. So I'm in the newspapers. I had to go in there. It's the only time I wore a mask. I didn't wear a mask whole way through COVID. I wore one then to get in and out of fucking Great Ormond Street, safe to, for my boy to have his operation and everything. Because that happened at the same time, it showed me. Well, I know what's important and I know what's not important. Like you, I know that you must be frightened when you're going to jail for subjudiciary or for whatever moody mortgage or passport stunt you've pulled off this week, or whoever you've put on their back at Centre Parks or on the Underground. But you believe in something more than that, don't you? And like I think what you believe in is Britain and righteousness. And the only thing that I'm questioning in you is the anger getting to the forefront of it, and that, like, I can see you get riled when you talk about the individual cases, and it seems to me you're questioning either a kind of naivety, but like there ain't no perfect solution outside of heaven and outside of Christ's kingdom. What we have to ensure we do is present to people something that's palatable and realistic enough for people to come together around it, so this doesn't end up benefiting some other institutional set of interests that are part of a political and financial establishment that will manoeuvre the British people once more. That's all I want to ensure. And I believe in freedom of the British people. If they vote we don't want migration, that's the end of the fucking subject. If they vote we want this amount, then that's I don't think I know any more than anybody else about that subject. I just want to tackle what I believe are corrupt and evil forces that have taken control of British government and global politics, actually.
Yeah, to do the things I've done, or the positions I've been in, you couldn't do that out of hate, yeah? You couldn't. So I've done that out of love. And that's love for Britain. That's love for my kids. I love my kids. I want what's best for them. You couldn't do it. I couldn't put myself in that position out of a hatred of something. The powers don't equal. Yeah. So I may seem like I get angry, I do, or I get passionate, but none of it's done out of hate. And I said, I don't hate Muslims. I love Muslims. But I'm not going to stand out. I'm not going to stand by and watch something so wrong that's happening. My thing, because the reason why I'm asking these questions, Russell, is because I know the position I've been in, yeah, and I know some of the things I've faced, and I know the dark places it's took me. So when I watch something happening to someone, when I've seen the headlines against you, my thought always goes, I wonder what it's like for his family, because I know what it's been like for my ex-wife. I wonder what his mum's going through. I wonder what. So that this is my this. So I know whenever I see it, that's what I think. And I said it to Andrew Tate, because I know Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, I look at him and I think, no, bruv, you can't be all right. I'm fucking fine. I said, you can't be fine, bruv. Like, so that's why when I see this, that's the only reason I'm asking you a question, not to put you on the spot. I'm just because I think that people need to understand. And do you know when I saw this as well, Russell? I've done a documentary called Plantation 2. No, not Plantation 2. The Phantom Rape Gang. And I went to investigate Pakistani rapists in Barrow, and the girl was lying. Yeah. When I got there, I started investigating this girl. She made claims about Muslims and the businesses. Their businesses have been smashed up. Their families have been attacked. And when I found one lie, I found another lie, and I found a third lie. It's a great documentary. Watch it. You can watch my films at trfilms.co.uk. It's called The Phantom Rape Gang, because there wasn't a rape gang. Yeah. So when I waited by this Muslim lad's house, and I waited by the back, and he's got an ice cream van, and his wife saw me. She said, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Yeah. And I said, "Look, I just want to speak to Mo. I want to ask him questions that I think need to be answered, because there were some red flags." So she's rang him, and he's come back. And then he arranged to meet me at his house. And as I've walked in his house, I get called a racist. He gets called a paedophile. Yeah. Two people shout out of different areas. Yeah. And I walk in, and as I walked in, I looked at him, I said, I think I won that one. Yeah. But as I sat down with him, his 16-year-old son, his 14-year-old son, and his wife were sat there. Now, bearing in mind, I already know this girl's a liar. I know she's lied about a rape at school. I know she's made allegations against another boy, fabricated evidence. He's been remanded for 6 months. So I know this, yeah? Which means, and this gentleman, Mo, I spoke to lots of young girls that worked at his previous business. I'd done my homework. I spent loads of times up there. So I had big questions. And I knew that he was being tried by public opinion, as you've been and I've been. Yeah? He's been tried by public opinion. So as I sat in there, I looked at his son. His son's the same age as my son. And I thought, my son's had a difficult time. And my daughter's had a difficult time at school because their dad's been judged as a racist. When Black Lives Matter went on, my eldest daughter had hell. Yeah, had hell. Right. So, and then all the same kids that gave her hell, that isolated her and had little pops at her, were then round my house 2 years later. And now when I see them, they'll shake my hand and hug me. Do you know what I mean? But so I know what he went through. So as I looked at his young son, I thought, fuck, man. And his son had to leave college because there's not many Muslims in Barrow. But And I actually worked to tell the story of these families and clear their name. Yeah. And Mo Rami, his name was, when an MP came out and said, I went up there to stir hate, he came out and made a statement saying the only person that come up here to help me was Tommy fucking Robinson. Yeah. But why I'm asking you this is because I saw the damage to Mo and I saw his son. And I just felt, and it was a real light bulb moment for me as I was investigating this thing. I thought, this can't fucking happen. But that's why I want to ask you the question. Even on your mum, because I know my mum, yeah? When these allegations are going on, you say you're wearing a mask. If you were back in the UK now, because of these allegations, how comfortable do you feel walking down the street?
You know what it's like, because in some places it just don't stick. What I think is people that didn't like me anyway have now got an upgrade. Instead of saying I don't like him, he's a prick, they can now say he's a rapist. So they got an upgrade on it. But what's amazing is they don't have, this is in fact the point, Tommy, is they don't have the control that they once had. And I think in a way it's a kind of inadvertent consequence of the changes that have happened around technology and media in the last 5 years in particular. Is there used to be a point where centralised media institutions could say, OK, Britain, we're all going to be doing this now. And then everyone just did it. And now they can't. Now it's like they say that pipeline got blown up. Putin blew up his own pipeline. And then minutes later, no, there's no way. That was Navy SEALs and Ukrainian special forces. And like everyone now knows it. Same with you. There will be, I'm interested in is there'll be people I reckon that support you that have been into the stuff I've done, particularly around COVID or whatever. And then there's enough people probably that maybe think like me and you is, well, if the same establishment that hates you, hates me, hates Tate, we've all got something that we need to do. Even if Andrew Tate's a Muslim and I'm you probably think a bit like, I don't know, too compassionate or too naive, whatever you think about me, when it comes to potential harmony between even the most opposing ideals. And people will say about you, the racist stuff that that you've already addressed. But the fact is I know, because I now know enough, because I've been through it now, mate. I've been through it as a celebrity. I've been through it with around the New Era estate, the no voting, the Andrew Sachs. I now know if the establishment is on you, that person's probably all right. Other than Jimmy Savile, I reckon you can probably rely on that. They were come round, have a medal, come round, have a knighthood. Yeah, launch your way through Stoke Mandeville Hospital. Have a corpse, have a 13-year-old, have a Down syndrome kid. Yeah, unbelievable. So yeah, on that, there's a few things I want to follow up on that. So I know what it's like. It's difficult. It's bloody difficult difficult for my mum. But most people don't believe it no more. And even when you said tried by public opinion, it's not. It's media. Of course, there's people that don't like me, and of course, me and my promiscuity. That was not cool behaviour in terms of damage done. It's not a cool way to live. But it's different from rape. It's different from rape and sexual abuse. Do things that people don't want you to do. Doesn't mean persuade people by being double charming and rich and famous and stuff. That's a different gig, man.
They were trying to do it to me. Panorama, if I didn't do Panodrama, I don't know if you saw it, if I didn't do Panodrama, the whole country would have been told I was Harvey Weinstein. That's what they were going to portray me as. And there was no truth in it. So whenever I see the allegations, I look and think, well, he started talking about vaccines, started talking about COVID, started talking about Big Pharma, bang, see you later. But, okay. Well, yeah,
there's a few things. Yeah. What about Tate then? What do you think about like he's someone that I'll talk to. I'm not sure if you've publicly talked to Andrew Tate or not, but he's another person that draws a lot of heat. He's another person that's divisive. Go on.
I know Andrew Tate before he was Andrew Tate. Yeah, before he was Top G. I'm from Luton. Andrew Tate's from Luton.
Whoa.
So I know we're both Luton boys. What's in the water in Luton? Eh? What's in the water in Luton? But Tate,
testosterone.
But Tate always, what I always say to people about Tate, because my supporters despise Tate, and I get a bit of a hard time, I'd say defending him. I know Andrew Tate, so I know a lot of the things he said were for controversy. I know that he built a character and an image for profit, and I know that he's a nice man. I know that. Yeah? So I know that growing up in Luton, there's no one that spoke badly of him. I know, and actually Amir, a Bosnian Muslim special forces, is who created Andrew Tate into the man he is. And I know that Amir is one of the most well-respected men in Luton. Yeah. So I know everything about Andrew's upbringing. I used to watch Andrew say things on TV, on camera. I think, well, that's not true. Yeah. But now he's getting punished for some of those little things where he was building an image of himself to create an image and a persona to profit, to get people to pay him. So I just look and think, so I don't like the fact he converted to Islam. I've had strong discussions with him about it. But also, I went to Romania with Andrew Tate in 2017, and we went with another journalist called Lauren Southern. Yeah. And when we went there, and there was another gentleman who worked for me. Now, in my documentary Panodrama, if you watched it, you'll see that Hope Not Hate were blackmailing a journalist who worked for me. Well, that journalist made a statement, a public thing, and the girl only now, she's wrote a book. And in the book, she's wrote an allegation that Andrew Tate raped her when we were there. Now, as I'm reading this, 100%, yeah, I was in the hotel room next door. So as I come out in the morning, she kisses him on the door. He walks her down with me. So I see her passionately kissing him. He walks her down with me to the car. She gets in the car. She's messaged him the whole time. She goes back out to see him. But now, all these years later, she says he strangled her and raped her. Yeah. Now, so I know that's not true because I was there. And it doesn't benefit me to put my neck on the line to have that conversation and discussion because my supporters hate Tate. Yeah. Because and I actually don't, because of the Islam thing. Tate made some comments again. I don't think he meant them. Yeah. He made comments about Islam. Britain needs to turn Islamic. Yeah. I don't think he believes that at all. And it was at a time when I think he was rebelling and saying things. I think he got deplatformed and there was a lot going on. Yes. I know Tate doesn't believe that. So I don't, but people hate him for the things he said, some of my supporters. So when I see things that are wrong, I question that. And my mate, do you know Rory Sinnock? Rory's always with Tate. So Rory's my mate, I grew up with him. Rory lived with Tate for 2 years. So when all the arrests happened, I rang Rory. So what the fuck is going on, bruv? What's this about? He goes, Jax, it's all bullshit. And he said, I lived there. He goes, that bird. So he's just telling me straight. And I don't know. I can't stand here and say 100% there's not one single part of any allegation. I can't say that. But what I can say is I've seen the lies. And do you know when this girl tells the lies, do you know who pushed the lies? Hope Not Hate. Do you know the organisation, the NGO funded by government, in with all the Marxists funded? Do you know the organisation who said it was their mission to end Andrew Tate? How do you end someone? How do you end Russell Brand? How do you stop anyone listening to Russell Brand talking about Big Pharma and the corruption and the lies and the blatant criminality that they did during vaccines and COVID? Which the same way they were about to. And if I hadn't seen this myself with Panodrama, if I hadn't seen John Sweeney from the BBC, do you know this? I had a phone call earlier from a Telegraph journalist. It's one of the first journalists that's rang me in years. When I done Panodrama, yeah. When I was first exposed as the leader of the English Defence League, a journalist called Stephen Bird come to my mum's house and I was wearing a mask and using a fake name. I was shitting myself, yeah? The journalist turns up at my mum's. My mum says, journalist here, looking for you, English Defence League. I'm like, fuck, they know who I am, yeah? Because no one knew. No, I got away with it for 9 months. No one knew who I was. I was wearing a balaclava giving interviews. No one knew that was Stephen Yaxley Lennon, yeah? So, but then the Times newspaper. So I went and met this journalist in a pub in Luton. And he said, your life changes tomorrow, Steve. Yeah? I said, why? He said, your front page of the Times newspaper. We're unmasking you. And then I was like, oh, man, because if you follow my address and check my name, it brings you to my mother's house. So I had all these fears and worries about attacks against my family. I shit myself, yeah? But I kept in contact with the journalist because when he wrote his article, I thought he was pretty fair, yeah? So I kept in contact with him over the years. When there was terrorist attacks, I had all the information that they all wanted in Luton because I'd been working against the mosque for years. I knew the Muslims. So I kept lots of relationships with them. Then Panodrama tried to set me up. I get covert recordings of John Sweeney, the lead BBC investigative journalist for Panorama. I get covert recordings of him making sexual allegations against me, lying, telling people what to say. I get all these things, yeah? Go watch the documentary if anyone hasn't watched it. It's the best takedown of the BBC. I get all this evidence. Panorama then contact me to interview me. They were doing a documentary on me, obviously. When they're doing a documentary on me, I sent a girl undercover into them. And I got her to wear a wire. And I get them all talking, making things up, telling people what to say. So then they contact me for an interview. I say, right, yeah, you have to do it tomorrow in my location. I'll meet you at 2:00 at this venue. And I set a screen up on the wall, and I sit down to be interviewed by Panorama. And you've done documentaries before, Russell, yeah? You have the cameraman and the editor. You don't have all the producers. But when they come for me, because this was a takedown, they were going to end me. When they come to sit there, there's about 8 of them, and there was the producers sat there. So when they asked me the first question, I said, "Can I ask you a question, John? Would you ever tell anyone what to say in an interview? If you sat down and said, say this, say this, say this, would you do that, John?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Play the film." And then behind me on the wall, and I just stared at him, behind me on the wall was a covert record of him saying, "Say this about Tommy, say this about Tommy." And his actual words were, "Do we have a deal?" Yeah. So I've got this footage. Now, and at this time, the producers are putting their hands in their heads. I ended him, yeah? But then I ring Stephen Bird, and I say, "Right, mate, I need to see you. I've got gold." Yeah. So I go and meet him. I sit down with him. He listens to all the recordings. I play him everything. I've got him on button cam. He's like, "Oh my God, this is fucking huge, Tommy." I said, "I know, mate. This is massive, yeah?" He says, "Right, I'll go see my editors." He meets me the next day. "I'm not allowed to run it." I said, "You're not allowed to run it? What the fuck do you mean? What do you mean you're not allowed?" Excuse my swearing, because I know you've got an American audience. I always get the messages. I said, "You're not allowed to run it." That's not a free press. That's a controlled press. Now, when I put that documentary out, it went to 2 million views in 48 hours, yeah? And at the time, I got them deleted from Facebook, deleted from YouTube in the same week, yeah? I got re-prosecuted by the Attorney General, right, in the same week. Do you know when you watch this film, everyone should watch it, called Panodrama, trfilms.co.uk. When you watch this documentary, and I asked this journalist earlier if he'd watched it, when he rang me up for an interview. I said, "Have you seen my film Panodrama?" He said, "Yeah, I have." So I told him the story I'm telling you now. Yeah. I told him the story. I said, "So you know Stephen Bird?" I said, "Yeah, he's my colleague." I said, "So you work with him?" I said, "When I produce, you watched Panodrama, haven't you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, it showed lots of evidence, again, of corruption and unfair, abusive playing by the journalists. And he said, "Illegitimate." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know how many journalists in Britain reported on that documentary? It had 2 million views before they cancelled me off everywhere. Not one single journalist in the whole of the UK reported on the biggest expose of the BBC there's ever been. Not one. Not one journalist. You done a video recently on the film that I produced that got me 18 months in jail. Do you know how many journalists in the UK reported on what I exposed and showed in that? Not one. There is no free press. There's the controlled establishment media. And what you're right about is when they want to put a target on someone, their power, the monopoly's gone. Yeah? Because people walk down the street and shake my hand, but it hasn't entirely gone. Because some people still want to attack you as a rapist. And just like the gentleman at St Pancras Station wanted to attack me. I don't blame him for wanting to attack me because he probably thinks I'm Satan. He probably believes I'm a white supremacist. He probably believes I want to deport every migrant or every Muslim, which I don't. Yeah. So the point is, there isn't a free press. I have proved it time and time again with documentaries. I'm just incredibly grateful. I'm incredibly grateful to the American population who voted for Donald Trump, because without Donald Trump and without Elon Musk, I don't think not the reincarnation, I don't think the public's ability to see some of the truths of who I am ever would have come. I was the most hated man in Britain. Do you know Katie Hopkins? I don't know your view on Katie Hopkins yet, but Katie Hopkins done the same as Andrew Tate, I think. She knew at the time controversy was currency when she come on the scene. But she was hated. Yeah, hated. She was the most hated woman in Britain. She lost her home. They took her home. I don't know if you know what they've done to her. When you hear her story, I moan and bitch all the time about my story. Yeah, I always moan, and I'm always poor me, poor me. You never hear Katie tell her story. When I heard her story and sat her down in a podcast interview, I was like, oh my God. Exactly the same as what happened to you. Conspiracy fears, conspiracy fears, conspiracy fears. On the same day, the emails come from the church, the rabbi, all of the united groups, all come together. She lost her job at the Daily Mail. She lost her... It's the same as happened to Majid Nawaz. I've seen it's happened to so many people. Majid Nawaz, they ended him. Yeah. He's lucky because he got a £4 million payout, so it hasn't ended him. But if he didn't get that payout, he would be totally ended. Cancelled, deplatformed, no job. Yeah. Why? Because he spoke against the vaccines. When he was talking about the vaccines on LBC, I was watching it thinking, you're ended, bruv. And because I know. Same with you. When you was talking about it, I was watching thinking, you're in trouble, mate. You can't come out of because you obviously have a platform and you have a large following who are listening to you on COVID, on vaccines. And you spoke about Big Pharma. You spoke about how they all cooperate. I have absolutely no doubt, Russell, that the migrant invasion, we are being played. I have no doubt that it benefits them. I have no doubt that mass immigration brings down wages, but they wish to bring in people who are reliant on the state because the mass corporations benefit. I have no doubt that they're using them and their culture to break down ours and the nation state, because then we're more controllable if we don't understand who we are or have our identity and culture. If there is no British Christian culture and it's broke down, we're lost. We're lost. We don't know who we are. So I have no doubt about that. So I at times I've held, when Black Lives Matter hit off, I'll come out strongly against him, man. And then I sat there thinking, they've done this to divide us. I fucking played. And then I thought, well, I've just played my role, haven't I? Because I've stepped straight in and caused the biggest division, yeah? But I have no doubt about that in many of the things. I totally understand that we're all being played. But at the same time, I think we have to stand up against the things we see. So it's a difficult situation. There's no easy solution to it.
The thing is, look, we're reaching people that you wouldn't realise that you're reaching, quite high-profile people. I remember hearing quite early on, like, that footballers watched my content because they already hate the media because they've all had them scandals and exposés and all that. So you start to hear that people, like, they're losing their reach, they're losing their control. I'm very encouraged, Tommy, when I hear you say about, like, the migration crisis is likely being used to benefit the state and media interest because it causes division. Like a leftist like George Galloway would say, it decreases the native workers' ability to negotiate a good wage. Then people on the right would say it's replacement theory. I would say I agree with you. It's about creating cultural confusion. Even ages ago, when I was still much more identified with the left, and now I don't think left and right works no more as a paradigm. I think you have to get into God versus not God or something like that. Like, that either you're on the holy path or they've got you. If they can make you an individual and care mostly about your individuality, and Lord alone knows that's what I've cared about most of my life, then they can manage you, corral you and paddock you off, kettle you, as it were, to use a word that we're probably on the edge of thinking about when talking about protests and stuff. Like, what I've come to realise, mate, what I feel like is, oh shit, I got a bit distracted because I was really happy that I remembered that bit where you talked about kettling earlier in the thing, and I thought, well, you're really tying this shit together well, and it's sort of I distracted myself. But like when right early on, I'll just finish this point because I've remembered it now, Tommy. Like, when it would like been easy to condemn you because I was much more I was still in the establishment, say, at least I was an anti-establishment bad boy within the establishment. Oh, look at him, he's sleeping with loads of women. Oh no, he's said a naughty word. But you're just a sanctioned object within the culture. I used to say then, when they were like critical of like people hanging flags up or whatever, I was like, hold on a minute, in the 1940s you required that class of people to go out and die for that flag, and now because they've got that flag up in their house in Hartlepool or Luton or Basildon or wherever, you want to call them racist. You can't keep changing the meaning of these flags. You can't, and that disorientation I think is very, very important. And in the macro argument, Tommy, I think is this, that they don't need a working class anymore, and they're looking for ways to demonise and annihilate the working class. They don't need one. Once they needed us to work in fields, then they needed us to work in factories, then they needed us to work in call centres, then they needed us to buy shit products made in India. Now they don't need us at all. So now it's like, fuck them. And what I feel like is important is to have the sort of intellectual, rhetorical and dialectic dexterity to be able to go, we're not falling down the Black Lives Matter trap. We're not falling down the trap of Muslims versus whites, blacks, Sikhs. This is like, if Britain has a Muslim population, it's got a Muslim population, they're going to be like, obviously they need to be able to practice their faith however they want to. If there's people that are LGBTQ+, they should be able to practice their faith faith. Same as Christians, same as conservatives. There's no requirement for centralised authority in the way there was, let alone authority outside of the country that's destroying the agricultural industry, that's pumping people full of drugs, all the crazy deals that were done with Moderna and Pfizer, even beyond COVID, Rishi Sunak owning shares in the company that funded Moderna before becoming Chancellor, let alone Prime Minister, then doing all them deals that benefit. I think hit them there. Like I think if you hit them there, because at the same time all this flag protest is happening across the UK, which I'm excited by, to tell you the truth, there's also them ones where they can't say the word Palestine. People should be able, if people want to protest for the rights of Palestinians, they should be able to do that as well. Free speech is free speech. It's particularly the free speech that we disagree with. They want people, one of the things I've read about you, and I wanted to ask you about, before we wrap up, not that I'm in a rush, you hear controlled opposition, stuff like that. I have people say about me, you probably know people say about you. When they say about you, they say it's to do with Israel and stuff. What is that about?
Yeah, totally. So I'll tell you what it's about. So I went to Israel. Well, growing up in Luton, do you know the Luton Islamic Centre? It used to be the what's the Jewish temple called?
Synagogue.
Used to be the synagogue, yeah. So the Luton Islamic Centre, which is the most radical mosque, with the terrorist mosque, that used to be the synagogue. I grew up Muslims. I remember. I'll tell you a story. Near Luton, there's a place in Lily which is a Jewish covenant. Like all the Orthodox Jews out in the woods, and they've got a big covenant, and they all live out in the woods. But as kids, we used to go fire stuff at it, smash stuff at it, not fight. But as kids, my mate had a flare gun. And my Muslim mate, Sully, was like, my mum would be so proud of me. And so I had lots of moments where I went, what the fuck? My mum would kill me, yeah? We were down there throwing stones trying to get chases, yeah? But I said, why would your mum be proud of you? He goes, because they're Jews. I didn't know what Jews were. We didn't have any Jews at our school. There's no Jews in Luton, yeah? So I didn't know what Jews were. But I continually heard hatred from the Muslims who I grew up with at school. Everything was the Jews, yeah? And then I saw as Jewish member, there was a Jewish families that had come in. There was an event at Luton Town Hall, and there was a remembrance for the Holocaust. And all the Mujahideen, which was Al Mujahideen, the extremist organisation, all turned up. And I can still see a family had to lock themselves inside, and the little girls were crying. So I'd seen so many things. And then I saw a march for Palestine coming out of Luton. And these are all the things I'm seeing before I started the English Defence League. And there's a march for Palestine, and there's thousands of Muslims coming out, and they're chanting, Qayuba, Qayuba, Qayuba. And I'm thinking, what are they chanting? So I asked my mate, what are they talking about there? And they said, well, Qayuba was a Jewish tribe, yeah, in the time of Muhammad. And Muhammad, they surrendered, and Muhammad beheaded 600 of them. So he killed them all. And the leader of the tribe was called Kanana. And and when I started studying Islam, and I picked up the biography of Muhammad by Ibn Ishaq, it's the most renowned biography in the world of the Prophet Muhammad. I picked it up, and when I read it, a Jewish tribe surrender, and then they pulled their pants down. Anyone who started puberty, they kill, yeah, they behead. But then he took the leader, Kanana, he tortured him, he burns his chest. This is in the Islamic scripture. He sets fire to him and takes his gold, yeah? It's a pirate. The man's a pirate, yeah? He was a warlord and a pirate. But he takes his gold. After taking his gold, he then takes his wife that night, Sophia, and he takes her as his wife. Yeah, it's not like she wasn't a willing participant in this, surely not. Yeah, but so as all this going on, I'm seeing them chanting Qayuba. So I understood the hatred of the Jews. And then as I looked at the Quran, no, the Quran is 7%. No, Mein Kampf, Hitler's book, is 7% Jew hatred. The Quran is 11%. So there's a big problem here. Yeah, Muhammad didn't like the Jews. Forget Israel. Muhammad didn't like the Jews. It's all in the scripture. It's in Muhammad's life. So when Israel happened, then I went to Israel. I don't know if you've been there, Russell. You've been there? No. So I went there, yeah. So I went to Israel, and I risked my life. I'll send you the footage. You can see the footage. You'll find it online. When I went there, I went to a Fatah controlled. I looked up. When you get there, there's all these signs saying, don't go past here. But when I got there, I thought, that's where I want to go. And I went with my mate Dean from school, but Jamaican kid I grew up with, yeah. So I went with Dean, but we filmed it all. And when I went, I said, Dean, we're going, I met these young Muslims. I paid them, yeah. They were in Israel. I said, lads, I want to pay you. Get me in that camp. I want to spend the day in the camp, yeah. And then I said to my mate Dean, we're going to this camp. And he's like, are you fucking mad? You're the fucking leader of the English Defence League. You can't go to a terrorist fucking camp, yeah. I said, bro, I said we can, yeah. But I said, Dean, I know it sounds mad, but if we go there, it'll be fucking great, yeah. So, and we're in the car on the way there, and I'm looking at him, and we had a big fallout, but he agreed to come. And then we go, and I'm sitting there, and on the way down thinking, the fucking hell am I doing here? But we go into this camp and I spend the whole day there. I've got some great footage. I'm playing football with all the kids. And on the side of all the houses, they've got murals. And the lad who's showing me round was a Muslim, 4th generation refugee. I related with him more than I related with anyone I met that trip. So I met Jews. I went around the whole of Israel. I related with him more because he was like me. Yeah? He was a background like me. You could have put him in a loop and he was one of the lads. Yeah? And he was telling me things as he walking around. He said, listen, never fund free Palestine because the money doesn't come to us. And I kept asking him. He didn't know who I was. And I've got all the footage of this. I kept asking him, who's oppressing you, bro? And he said, the Palestinian Authority. And I'm like, Palestinian Authority? I didn't know who they were at the time. Yeah. And he didn't mention Israel. And then he said, I said, what do you mean? And he explains. So on the side of all the houses are murals. So I said, who's she? He goes, she blew up a bus in Israel. Suicide bomber. She's a martyr. I was thinking, she's a fucking terrorist, bro. She's not a martyr. And then I said, who's that? And in this camp, and I played football with the kids, and I said, where's the park? He said, there is no park. And then he told me that Palestinians had 3 times more money than Germany had after the World War. But they haven't got park, and they haven't got houses. And he explained why. He said, I am a 4th generation refugee. My children will be 5th generation, and theirs will be 6th generation, because it benefits Hamas. It benefits the Palestinian Authority. It benefits Fatah. It benefits them to keep us like this. Because when people come, and I left that camp, Russell, I'm an advocate for Israel, and I speak out against Palestine and Hamas. I left wanting to give the kids money. And I said to my mate, what he told me was that the Palestinian Authority pay, say the equivalent of £4,000 a month, for the rest of the person's life. If someone leaves that camp and kills an Israeli. So I said, if you leave the camp and kill a Jew, and he corrected me. He said, no, not a Jew, an Israeli, a Bedouin, a Muslim, because there's 2 million Muslims in Israel, any of them. If you kill an Israeli, for the rest of your life, you are paid by the Palestinian Authority a sum for the rest of your life. So then I said to my mate Dean, because I always viewed it as an Islamic jihad. And I thought, this ain't even jihad, bruv. These are mercenaries. So, and I look, I've got 3 kids. Dean had children. I said, there's no future here. Now, for the only escape for a man to get his family out of here is to go and kill a Jew or an Israeli. Yeah. So, and then I looked up the Palestinian Authority. We fund the Palestinian Authority, British taxpayers' money. So I've done all this. I went there with him. And then when I went there, I got back to Israel and I put a camera on him. And I sat down in the safe zone then. I said, can I tell you who I am? And he's like, what? I said, have you heard of the English Defence League? He's like, yes. I said, my name's Tommy Robertson. I'm the leader of the English Defence League. And he was upset. But he said, why? Yeah. But by this point, we formed a relationship. We got on really well. But he said, why? Why? I said, because I had to hear from you. I had to see from you as a refugee. I had to see the problems, yeah? And there are problems. Of course there's bloody problems. Okay, it's a war, yeah? Of course there's problems. And then I went to Israel, and I spent time in the disputed territories. I went to the settlements. I went to the Gaza Strip. I was on the Golan Heights, yeah? And I bought a Mossad t-shirt from a souvenir shop on the Golan Heights, yeah? And I took a picture of it. And that's from that picture, when I went to New York, when I illegally entered New York, yeah? When I went to New York, I wore a t-shirt saying New York Police Department. I'm not in the fucking New York Police Department. But I wore a Hamas t-shirt. I wore a Mossad t-shirt. And from that picture, everyone says the Mossad. And obviously I speak about Israel and I speak out against Hamas because I understand that Israel is surrounded by this idea, yeah? This fascist idea. So I've been there. So when people counter me on Israel or Palestine, I just say, have you been there? Yeah, because everything I thought I knew, it was different. In the sense, there's 2 million Muslims who live in the state of Israel, happily. And as I was going through, there's camel racing. There must be 1,000 young Arabs, Muslims. Yeah, I've got an I Love Israel t-shirt. So I said, stop the car. I've got this little attraction to fucking Trump. Yeah. So I'm like, stop the car. And they're like, why? I said, I want to go over there and talk to them. Yeah. So I walk over in the middle of 1,000 young Muslims. There's someone standing with a Kalashnikov, yeah? I'm wearing an I Love Israel t-shirt. No one bats a bloody eyelid. I was there when Trump got elected the first time. That's when I was there. No one batted an eyelid. And as we're there, there's 1,000 young Muslim men. And there's Jews sitting down with skull caps on, having picnics. No one's batting an eyelid. And I sat there and thought, if that was in East London, or if that was in a Luton Park, I don't think they can sit there and have that picnic without getting a bit of abuse. So this actually works better here than it does back there. Yeah, it works better here. And then I spoke to the Muslims, every Muslim I met, because I'm obviously inquisitive. So I met a Muslim on the Golden Heights. I said, bro, what's it like for you here? Yeah, and I'm expecting him to say, fucking hates Israel. He said, I have everything I want here. And the bombs are going off. It's at the time of the war in Syria, on the Golden Heights. And he says to me, and he's in Israel, he said, I pray 5 times a day. He said, where do you think I want to be? And he pointed over there where the bombs are going off. You think I want to be over there? He said, I'm happy in Israel. And I'm like, what the hell, man? So, and that doesn't mean there's not problems, because of course there are. But I went and asked questions. So when I speak about Israel, I obviously have a strong opinion based on Hamas. I don't know if you know this yet. So Hamas's article on their manifesto says the final day of judgment does not come until all the Jews are dead. It doesn't say the Zionists. It says the Jews. Now, I call myself a Zionist because what I believe Zionism means is a homeland for the Jews. Now, if there's 55 Islamic nations, why can't the Jews have one? When historically it is their land, and it has to be their land because they were there before the Muslims, yeah, and they were driven out. So historically, nothing's perfect. The Balfour Declaration, nothing's perfect. But if there's 55 Islamic countries, why can't the Jews? That's my opinion. Why can't the Jews have one? When they were driven out of every country in Europe, when they were persecuted, when they were taught, so I have this opinion, and I think, well, Saudi Arabia don't take any in. Egypt's got a wall twice as big as Trump's. Any country that took the Palestinians in, like Jordan, turned to civil unrest because they tried to overthrow the country themselves. They caused fucking mayhem in Lebanon. So I look at this and think there's no perfect answer. There's no perfect answer. But there's a war. And if we look at England and Scotland, if Scotland elected a government by a majority, which is what happened with Hamas, they were elected by the Palestinians. The majority voted for Hamas. The second majority voted for Fatah. So it was 2 terrorist groups, yeah? And Hamas's final day of judgment doesn't come till the Jews are dead. So if Scotland elected a government that said the final day of judgment does not come till every English person's dead, yeah? If that's what they'd done, and then that government used all the funding to fire rockets every day at us in England, in our playgrounds, in our schools, and then that government's army, because it's an army they've got, Hamas and an army, hid in schools, in playgrounds, what would we, the British public, be saying, or the English public, if they crossed the border and raped 1,400 and brought loads of them back and kidnapped all our women? What would we be saying? We'd be saying, get rid of them, blitz them. Look what our government done to Iraq and Afghanistan for nothing. Look what they've done for nothing. Yeah. So if that was happening, so I do have a strong opinion. I have never met a bad Jew. I don't know any heroin dealing Jews. I don't know any grooming Jews or rapist Jews. I don't know any. I know that Jews rise to the top because they keep themselves in their family. Their IQs are higher. So I see this, and I've gone down the Jewish question. I've looked at it because when people blame everything on the Jews, and you know what? When Biden was in charge of America, I despised Biden. I despise what he represented. I don't mean I hate every American. You can disagree with the Israeli government, but why are you blaming the Jews? Every Jew. Why is it the Jews? When I don't know any Jews that are in Britain are well integrated, they're patriotic, they love the country. So I have this stance, and I'm not about to. And do you know what the easy option is to do, Russell? The easy option is to hate the Jews, or the certainly easy option is to not defend the Jews. The easiest thing is to not speak up about this issue, because all you get is shit. And I haven't had funding. If any Jews are watching this now from Mossad, I'll take your money, lads. Yeah, but I haven't had their money. So, and do you know so this rumor that I am funded by Israel. I worked for Ezra Levant, my first job as a journalist, 2015. Now, in fact, Russell, I'll say this to you. You receive probably money from YouTube, right?
No, they demonetised me after I got accused of that. And the British government, Caroline Dinenage, married to Mark Lancaster of the 77th Brigade, demonetised me that day. So I don't get YouTube money, but I reckon you can sort of tie me to Moody money somewhere. Go on. Rumble, I get money from Rumble.
Well, what I mean is, when you receive advertisement from YouTube, the 2 main owners of YouTube, the CEOs, are Zionist Jews. Now, what that means is, this is what they've done to me. This is how they say it to me. That means you are funded by Zionist Jews. That's what they've done to me. So basically, I received money from Rebel Media in 2015. Rebel Media received money from Bob Shulman, who's a Zionist Jew. If I was a Jew, I'd be a Zionist Jew. Yeah, so I'd want a homeland. Now, when the anti-Semitism is rife in every European country, where are they meant to go? As I said, our country we want to go to is Britain. Where are the Jews meant to go if they don't have Israel? So I understand. At the same time, when you're watching all the media, I get why people are concerned. I get the worry of people looking at the Palestinians. I get it all. But in war, shit happens. Real serious shit happens. And it is a war. And if Israel wanted to nuke and end every Palestinian's life tomorrow, they'd do it like that. They'd do it like that. So they could do it like that. And that doesn't mean in war there's not wrongs being done by the soldiers. It doesn't mean it. But so because I say that, and then there's certain things, Tottenham played Millwall, football hooligans. Millwall are the biggest, Tottenham are one of the biggest firms. That's a staunch rivalry. Now, Luton have a good relationship with Millwall, with Tottenham. So in about 2010, when I was at the height of the EDL, I went to that game with Tottenham. And it went all over the hooligan boards, all over the country. Tommy Robinson's with Tottenham. Why is he with Tottenham? So I just answered, because I'm a Jew. Yeah, I'm just taking a piss. Yeah, because I'm a Jew. Nick Griffin, at the start of the EDL, when I was wearing a mask, Nick Griffin made a video saying, it's a Jewish conspiracy. Yeah, it's a Jewish conspiracy, and it's the British state, and they're working with Mossad, and it's all Zionism. So the next time, when I was unmasked, I went to an event, and I wore a badge just to piss off Nick Griffin, because he was attacking me all the time, because he hated me, because I'm a race traitor. So I wore a badge saying, I'm a Zionist. Yeah, and it was just me trolling. It's just me taking a piss. Anyone who knows my personality, I'm just on a wind up half the time, with half the shit I'm saying. But when you put all those things together, and there's another case. So in 2000, when I started the EDL in 2009, I had a PA called Hel Gower. We had a Jewish division run by a very brave little Jewish lady called Roberta Moore. Now, Hel Gower hated Roberta Moore. Roberta Moore hated Hel Gower. So what Hel Gower done in 2011, she set up a limited company and tried to trademark the EDL. And she done this, and she set up the Jewish division of the EDL and the JDL in order to try and trademark it to force Facebook to shut down Roberta Moore's Facebook page. So people dig up this company in 2011, English Defense. It's not my company. It was Hel Gower's, my PA. They dig it up and they try and say, see, Mossad controlling the EDL. It's innocent. It's all bullshit. So that's where it comes from, man. But again,
that's pretty good. I've got 33 tattoo. I get a lot of grief for that. 32. That's my Illuminati tattoo. I get a lot of hassle for that.
Symbols.
Symbols. What about how come Tottenham and Luton get on then? David Pleat? Was it David Pleat? What is it? What's the connection?
The connection was that when some lads got banned from Luton, because you get football banning orders, they still want to go football. So there's a lot of Tottenham football lads from surrounding towns near Luton. So they started going there with them. So then they formed a good. Our youth, our youngsters, had a good relationship with Tottenham's youngsters. So there was a friendship formed. So some clubs have that. Rangers have it with Chelsea. Certain clubs go together. Rangers and Chelsea
Celtic,
just because of loyalism.
That.
Yeah. So when people say I'm Mossad, that's where it's come from.
What about that tattoo, Tommy? West Ham. They're mad. And then on this one, that's the Kund of the Sikhs. There's a lot of confusing stuff going on, but that's the one that matters. Our Lord and Saviour Jesus, mate. That's been very, very, very good to listen to you. There's a lot's gone on there. We talked for 97 minutes now. I know we could do a lot longer. I'm happy for all of that to go out. I think we should keep on talking, and you see what kind of feedback you get. I'll obviously see what feedback I get. It's going to get clipped up. I reckon people will care about this, but I'd love to talk to you more, mate. And I respect your bravery, and I respect your sacrifice, and I respect your willingness to have conversations, and I respect where you're coming from. And I hope that we can find ways to work stuff out together, because our country is in serious trouble. And we've got to find ways, I reckon, to find new alliances and new communities, so that the beneficiaries of this don't have the same connections as always takes place. You vote for Labour, you get this lot. You vote for the Conservatives, you get that lot. And I don't want the main beneficiaries of this uprising in the UK to be the kind of establishment interests that actually don't care about migrants, don't care about white working class, don't care about Islam, don't care about Christianity, care about the consolidation of global power and the exploitation of ordinary people everywhere and the denial of the one true God. So that's like, you know, mate, I think there's room for us to explore stuff.
I enjoyed it, Russell, man. Keep your eyes on September 13th. Something huge is about to happen, man. Something
Please
huge.
God.
There's a great British revolt coming, man, and a Christian revival. So thank you very much, Russell. I enjoyed it, yeah? And good luck.
Should we stay in
Good
touch?
luck.
Nice one. Thanks for watching the video. Have a look at this one over here, or join us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on Rumble.